welcome everybody to the episode of the Builder's Corner, where we talk about everything Masonic, from leadership, how to improve, giving lectures for knowledge to increase brothers' growth in the craft. I'm pleased to be joined tonight by some fabulous, amazing brothers that I really love and near dear to my heart. Right Worshipful Damien E. Giles, Right Worshipful Fred Reed, and then excellent Kenny Rankin. Brothers, I just want to start out by saying thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight for this show and be able to reach brothers and talk to people out there in the world in our Masonic organization. Giles, if you don't mind, brother, can you give us a little info about you, Masonically, how long you've been in this and where you're at currently?
I'm Damien E. Giles Sr., Grand Junior Warden of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Washington. I've been a member of Julius A. Haddon Lodge for 24 of my 26 years in Masonry. I was originally raised as a member of Spanaway, Washington Spanaway Lodge, number 83, in 1998. You asked for some of my accomplishments?
Yes, sir.
The Grand Junior Warden of our current jurisdiction. I'm also the secretary of our Orient, and just a all around brother. Man, I really don't tend to think about accomplishments in that way that I will be able to list them. So, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Right Worshipful Fred Reed, brother, same for you. You can just let us know a little bit about you, the lodge or different bodies you may belong to.
I am too a proud past master of Julius A. Haddon Lodge number 102 of Federal Way, Washington. I also serve as one of 5 grand trustees for the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Washington and jurisdiction, where Most Worshipful Antonio D. Graham serves as our 51st Most Worshipful Grand Master. As far as accomplishments, I'm also a past commander in chief, currently an intimate commander, past assistant district deputy, also funeral team director for the Orient. We all doing masonry. We all wear many hats to keep the wheels turning.
Indeed,
On
indeed,
the
sir.
working, brother.
Thank you very much for that. Kenny Rankin, brother, if you don't mind taking the time out to introduce us, introduce the world to yourself and a little bit about yourself as far as goes for your Masonic background.
Good evening, brothers. My name is Kenneth Rankin. I am Worship Master, Lee Grant Rogers, Lodge number 61 in Tacoma, Washington. I've been a Freemason since 2002. I was originally raised in Lion of Judah in South Korea, Wall, Washington jurisdiction. As far as, accomplishments, I would say the only real accomplishment that I would list is that now I'm starting to see the work that I put in, decades ago. A lot of brothers who have, come through Freemasonry or are in Freemasonry now, I had a hand in helping them through. I've spoken with them, I'm seeing the fruits of that labor. And that's pretty much all it is for me, the labor.
And I appreciate you, brother, for that. And when I say accomplishments, I mean things that you feel personally hold a place in your heart as you walk your Masonic path, not necessarily a notoriety for things you've done. Because, like you said, we all hold many different hats across many different bodies. And, even if we had to go back to the beginning, we'll do it all over again if it will help us grow as a whole. So, thank you, brothers, for taking the time to just let everybody know who you are, where you're representing. Before we start the show, as always, I like to let everybody know the thoughts and the views that we give here are solely our own. They don't in any way reflect any grand bodies, chapter councils, commanderies, and their views. So as we speak from the heart. We don't speak on the behalf of those bodies per se. So just starting off, right, Worshipful Giles, quick question for you. So what do you feel like it means when somebody says to truly be committed to the craft?
To truly be committed to the craft, in my opinion, it's doing what it is you say you're going to do, being where you say you're going to be. Right now, does that mean that you have to be at every function, every banquet, any and everything going on? No, it doesn't. What it does mean is that, in my opinion anyway, is keeping true to the obligation that you took to your lodge, the organization, and your brothers itself.
Hey, and I can feel that. That's a good answer, brother. Really, it is. Is attendance enough and is commitment measured by your personal participation? Do you feel like that is a thing?
I feel like unfortunately that's a thing. It's a thing that some brothers use to measure one's dedication to the craft. But if we're being realistic, that is not, you know, participating isn't the only way to support.
Right.
It is the best way to support. There is no better support than your presence. We all know within the length of our cable toe. And so if the length of your cable toe doesn't, require you to be at any and every banquet and meeting, like Right versus Fragile stated, there's other ways to support. And we as brothers, we as active brothers, we have to appreciate the support brothers can give rather than scolding brothers for not trying to make time that they don't have. But, I'm a strong believer that if we show our appreciation when at times
Kenny, why do you feel like some lodges are struggling even when they have participation, and some lodges who don't have as much participation might thrive more than those lodges?
Primarily, I think it's a sign of the times. We just aren't raising members like we done in the past, and younger men don't seem to be as interested in these kind of things anymore. Especially if we do happen to bring them into the fraternity, and the first few months, I say the first 90 days, we're not giving them anything tangible, like a tangible return on their deposit. I'm talking about, their deposit is time and the effort that we asking of them. And the older men might feel that they just too old to do it or too stuck in their ways if they are in to take on, different parts of labor. But for the most part, it's what I see is, we got a lot of elders, man. And, I feel we in a transition of passing the torch right now.
Okay. And I pose that same question to you too, Fred. Why do you
Mhm.
feel like some lodges who have larger numbers might be struggling, whereas a lodge that has smaller numbers might be thriving?
I think because you can be a large lodge on paper, but again, it goes back to participation. How many brothers do you have, participating, showing up, actively helping the master open the lodge every meeting, participating in degree work? I think to answer your question, when you see those smaller lodges that may have more participation than the bigger lodges with more brothers, it's because the chemistry is better. And that's no slight at the larger lodge, but that smaller group of brothers just have a better chemistry and an understanding, and they're all on the same page for the mission that they're trying to accomplish for their lodge. And sometimes when lodges are big and you have 20 past masters and you have, you know, 10 brothers in line waiting to get in line, or however that look, there's a lot of politics that come in between that. But to answer your question, I think that's why you see less commitment with larger lodges uh, than with smaller lodges.
Okay. And so I respect that very detailed answer to that question. Right work for Giles. What is the to you, what is the importance of proficiency and the meaningness behind a strong ritual delivery? How do you feel like that's impactful on a brother when they come through?
When I first came in, I viewed proficiency as monolithic. Can I open up the ritual and go from the front cover to the back cover without missing a word? Can I walk and talk the middle chamber? Can I do all these things? Can I perform the degree work? Can I talk to you about the Masonic lectures? Right? And in some instances, that's how we determine if a brother is sharp or not. But since I've been in this organization, man, I've come to realize that proficiency is not a monolith. It's multifaceted because proficiency can be ritualistic, proficiency can be in administration, right? Who knows the code book, front and back. And that brother may not necessarily be ritualistically sound because he may not do well with public speaking. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Um, then there's literacy issues that some of us face in our older ages. But as it regards to proficiency, like I said, it used to be one sided with me. But as I've gone through this and I've gotten older and realized that I've forgotten more than I remember, it's not, it's all encompassing of the organization, I guess you could say, right? Because where I may be proficiently sound ritualistically or administratively, and I'll just, for the sake of conversation, I'll go with administration to prove the point. Right, where administration may be my thing, right? I may be the go-to guy in my lodge for code issues or regulatory issues, right? But then Fred may be the ritual guy, right? So if we're having a study hall or we're prepping for degree work of whatever degree, and we're sitting there, we're going through things, and we have a question, and we can defer to Fred. Fred, what say you about this? Because this is where we're at. What's your opinion? And we kind of take that opinion as the guide, the go to.
How do you feel like the impact of the proficiency is on the brother? So do you feel like if the delivery of the proficiency isn't sound, isn't crisp, do you feel like that negatively impacts a brother going forth? Could it lead to him not striving to be as proficient? Do you feel like it maybe hurts the lodge when we aren't all proficient uniformly? Like you said, we all may have proficiency in different areas, which is very true. I know some brothers who know the code book front to back, but they may can't do the first and second degree without maybe stumbling or forgetting something here. But if you were to talk about what's the policy on this or what does the code relate to is this, they can tell you which section, what title to right to go to, like things of that nature. So when they're coming through and we're doing proficiency as they're on their path to become a master mason, do you feel like it's soundly important that everybody is extremely proficient when it comes to walking in degree work and as well as after the fact with opening and closing the lodge? Do you feel like that's hurtful or impactful, not even to newer brothers, to older brothers too? Do you feel like it anyway damages the lodge if they're not soundly 100% proficient?
I don't feel that it damages the lodge if a brother isn't, proficient to what I would determine a level of proficiency to be. I don't think it hurts the lodge. I think that when we are uh, going through our degrees, the first, second, or third degree, with doing the degree work, I think that you only get one chance to make a lasting impression, right? And granted, the candidate doesn't know what he's hearing to be true, but he does know what it sounds like, right? So if it comes off that you're not confident in the words that you're giving, you're not strong in your rhetoric, or your presentation. And I think that when putting your best foot forward, you use the best person to get the job done, right? I don't think it hurts the lodge, but unfortunately, we also use that level of proficiency or a level of proficiency to measure a master mason's worth or to determine whether they are, again, a good solid brother just based on proficiency. And I'm even guilty of that to a degree. It's not a litmus that I use to measure a brother against anymore, their level of proficiency, to determine whether they're a good brother or not, right? Because, like we just said, some people that's just not their thing. So some people just don't even feel the need to put the effort into becoming ritualistically proficient, right? They may know what they're talking about from the standpoint of being able to discuss certain things, right? But be able to recite it or regurgitate it on call or on demand. I don't necessarily think that one or the other hurts a lodge or what have you, right? Because there's many other things in a lodge that determine a lodge's strength or its worth.
Right. And so, like for me, I feel like obviously The ritual is very important. And I'm a strong believer in being proficient. But you become proficient through studying, and it's over time. Some people will say, hey, I had to be proficient on this before I could move up to the next level. And so, it is a strength when you're able to do that, because I feel like you're able to go out there and give it when need be. And if presented the right way, it's very impactful on a brother's journey, on how they remember it or how they felt in that moment as they go forth. But I don't feel like, we should crucify people, because I've seen sometimes, and I'm pretty sure people have seen sometimes, if we're doing degree work or something like that, and a brother misses a word or stumbles, somebody will shout out to him or cut cross him. I feel like that's the hurtful part, because, like you said, the brother doesn't know what he's hearing. It's his first time ever hearing it. Now he can hear that side conversation with somebody like you messing that up, or you do that shouldn't be that way. After the fact, you should say, hey, well, we can get together and work on this and come a little bit better or whatever. Finding that person who is good at that one part, somebody else may be more fluid at this one part. And I think that those should be the people delivered, and we should stack in the order where it comes. But we should never interrupt people doing degree work, because, like you say, a brother may be older, he forgot a couple of lines, or he fills it in with something else. You don't critique him right then and there on the spot, because the candidate takes that in too. And so that's not a good look. And then also, some people just don't like to be critiqued in public, so that could cause a rift. And now a brother's upset by how he felt like you tried to check him, in front of people, or embarrass him in that moment.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but to take that a step further, I've sat in some degree work where, you have people that think that they are the most proficient, you know, and they're sitting there listening to or participating in the degree work, or sitting amongst the craft, and all you hear, you know what I mean? And that to me, it's unnecessary, right?
Yeah,
Because you're not helping anything, and you're not even a part of what's going on. You
right,
know,
right,
mind yourself and talk to that brother, after it's over with, or call
yeah,
him. But you got a brother, let's say you have a brother, man, that has been appointed the senior deacon, right? Or the junior warden is performing the first degree as the worshipful master. So he's going through the obligation, right? And the junior warden typically, man, these days anyway, are relatively young brothers. So they've been in the craft probably a couple, 2, 3 years, right? Not even 5.
right,
But now they're playing this vital role in a lodge and then degree work. So they're so focused on not screwing it up, getting it right, word for word, letter for letter, syllable for syllable, that they put so much pressure on themselves that they do screw up somewhere in there.
right.
But where were you?
It's usually a past master or somebody, or a brother that's been there
Yeah,
for a
that's,
while.
that's, that's absolutely right. That
Right.
is
I
absolutely
like
right.
I
You
like to
know?
chime in on this. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, no, go ahead, bro.
I like to chime in on this efficiency conversation because I do find it interesting, and I think it's a topic all jurisdictions obviously talk about. Um, I want to talk about it from the perspective of I think it's a balance. I think it's a balance. I think everything everybody has said is correct, and I agree with everything that is said. I also think that there is proficiency. I also think suitable proficiency, as right Richard Giles said, it reaches beyond the ritual, right? Are you suitable? Are you proficient in coming to your meeting? Are you proficient in supporting the Grand Lodge and the Grand Lodge function? Are you proficient in supporting your district deputy? Are you proficient in supporting your worshipful master and what he has going on, and his officers, the junior ward and the senior ward? But I also think when it comes down to degree work, me personally, I too have changed over the years. I used to like to see uh degree work, no book. I want to see you run it. I want to see you do
Right.
it how we did it, right?
Right.
But I also understand today's masonry isn't yesterday's masonry, and I haven't even I'm not even a super seasoned brother like that. I'm not trying to portray myself to be, but it's still a different era from the era I came. And so for myself to keep the trains moving, I am now of the belief I have no problem. with you reading in degree work. However, suitable proficiency. You should be proficient in reading. You shouldn't be up there stumbling and fumbling over words
Right.
or reading it as if this your first time reading it,
Right.
because then you expose your study habit.
Yes. Yes.
Okay?
I totally agree
So
with you.
I think suitable proficiency goes beyond just memorize. We have to be suitable proficient in addressing the crowd and addressing the public and addressing. We can't just be shooting off the hip. And so that's where study hall and degree rehearsal come in at. And when I was coming up and when I was a young Mason, we had rehearsal, and that's why we was tight when it came out degree work.
Right.
It
Yep.
wasn't because we just rolled out of bed
Yeah.
ready for a day and when it handled business. No, we had rehearsal.
Right.
We built the chemistry.
Yeah, and obviously, we met consistently, and we went over that, and everybody had a specific role to play, and it was your job to know what you had and to deliver it in a certain manner that was in line, because it was just not acceptable to do anything less.
Right.
So, Kenny, question for you: do you feel like today we are taking quantity over quality? And do you feel like there should be a more strenuous hold put on how fast brothers advance? Because I feel like
Mm.
today, we want to get numbers in, so brothers kind of like push brothers to the next level, and it kind of jumps back to their proficient, where they're not quite really truly proficient, but they say, "Oh, it's good enough," so we'll go ahead and move you. Do you feel like we're in a rush to get the numbers up, so we overlook that when it comes to filling the seats?
We put that pressure on ourselves a lot of the times, most of the time, when we are doing degree work. It is in our lodge meetings, which are at 7:30 at night for a lot of our lodges. And so brothers might feel they need to expedite the work. They'll stop mid lecture and be like, "Hey, don't worry about that. They'll learn that later." I think that is, I think the quality over quantity argument can be made there, but it all ties into what we've been talking about so far, which is proficiency and the meaningful impact. Proficiency gets used a lot with consistency, or effort, and the quality that we also put out there is going to attract quality members. That's why proficiency, like you guys said, is not just ritualistic proficiency. It's not just administrative proficiency, and it's not just like social proficiency. I mean, like, you have brothers that go to more sipping dips than they do lodge meetings, but they always willing to walk and talk with you. You have brothers, like y'all said, that are proficient in the ritualistic work because they feel that they didn't join to be a businessman, i.e., secretary or treasurer. And then you have the brothers who are uncomfortable in the spotlight and don't mind doing the and secretary or anything that causes them not to have a speaking part. But the speed in which we deliver degree work is, I think, something that we kind of put on ourselves because we start at 7:30 in the evening, and efficient degree work is going to take you about 2 hours. And if you have a team that's not as proficient as it could be longer than that. You're talking about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. In some cases on a Wednesday. And that impacts the quality of the work.
Right words for Giles. How important do you feel like it is to have Masonic education a part of every meeting? And do you feel like it should be a specific focus on one subject or another when we're having this education?
If we're talking every meeting, I would say that would be what we would call good of the order, right? You bring bring a little something for the good of the order. I can't speak for other lodge meetings, but we have 2 meetings a month, and our meetings are broken down as our first meeting of the month is our business meeting, and our second meeting of the month is our work and instruction night.
Mhm.
Right. So our work and instruction night either tends to be a shorter meeting, or that's the meeting where we're prepping for degree work or somebody brings a lecture, and that's more or less the focus, right? We're not so focused on business. And the reason I say that is because if we're focusing on one particular aspect throughout our lodge meetings, what else are we're missing out on something else, right? So I think that you have to have a balance, right? You'll never hear me say that there's no room for Masonic education in our lodge meetings, because that's just simply not true.
Right.
I think that we could all use some form of education every time we come together, right? And that's where um, that we've all agreed in some instance or another. That's where Masonry actually happens. The educational aspects, the lessons, the discussions. That's where it really happens in the parking lot. Once the lodge meeting is over with, your jacket and tie comes off, drink get poured, cigars get lit. You know what I'm saying? In your more relaxed environment, the formalities are over and done, right? So does that happen at every lodge meeting? I can't speak for everybody else, but I know it does in 102.
Okay. Fred, question for you. Understanding symbolism beyond memorization. How important is that to you?
Mm.
Understanding symbolism beyond memory.
Beyond,
So not just that short, brief description, but
right.
actually diving deeper. How important is that to you?
To me, it is of the utmost important, because what you're asking me and what you're explaining is simply the difference between understanding and comprehending. When you understand it, you can take it and you can apply it. When you comprehend something, you understand it, you can take it, apply it, and teach it to someone else.
Okay.
And so when you talk about symbolism beyond memory, I think of being able to instruct from a certain degree or from a certain avenue of masonry without having that ritual in front of you, or without looking at that particular thing recently. That is when, something is embedded, that so you can always go back and talk about the pillars. You can always go back and talk about the 48 problem of Luther, 47 problem of Luther, excuse me, because those lessons are embedded and you comprehended it. You didn't just understand it. To me, if that's an answer to your question, is of the utmost important, because again, symbols are at the core of what we do as Masons.
Right.
Uh, and a lot of my interpretation about what is going on outside of my jurisdiction, I read through symbols. Oh, this guy is wearing a different hat now. He got a different title. This guy is wearing a different badge now. He got a different title.
Right.
All those are symbols that, the naked eye will look at. Oh, that's nice. What he got on. But us as Masons, we look at that and we interpret it, right? So, and again, it's about comprehending, what it is we do. I always love to compare that of Freemasonry to a sport that we play. And, you have players that study the game through and through, and you have guys that just come through that are just talented at it, but they may not be into the inner workings of the history, or the who came before them or whatever. They just living in their era, in their time, and they trying to make their mark. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, like, it being a sport, you have different type of players, different type of ambitions, different type of goals, and different type of skill set.
Oh,
But one skill set every Mason should have is being able to read and comprehend understand symbolism.
Right. Kenny, which Masonic symbol has the greatest impact on you, and how does it pertain to your everyday life?
Uh, man, if I had to choose one, it would be the 24-inch gauge. I think that that's one of the foundational. Well, it is one of the foundational tools that we use, being emblematic of time management. And I use it because, like most brothers, man, I'm busy like everybody else. And even though I love to study, and meditate on what I learned, for a couple hours at a time, I had to condense my time to get the most out of it. Also, I use time management to, like I said, meditate on things that I learned. I try and use all the tools. I try and be conscious about using all the tools in our fraternity, especially some of the more common knowledge ones like the 24-inch gauge and the common gavel, because man, I'm forever trying to refine myself and you know build myself. But the 24-inch gauge is one that I use all the time because I have to set aside time to decompress. I have to set aside time to absorb what I talk about when I'm talking about maybe this our fraternity or things at work. you know so that's one that had the greatest impact with me.
Okay. Right, Worshipful Giles, I asked you the same question. Which Masonic symbol holds the deepest meaning to you, and how does it impact your everyday life?
That'd be the 47th. And the reason I say that, I think it was approaching my time as grand lecturer. I gave a lecture on the 47th problem. And it was from the standpoint of you can't have success without adversity, right? So that's what the checkerboard represents, the black and the white squares, right? You can't put one foot in success without putting one foot in adversity. And from that point, it's how do you deal with it, right? And for me, that's a life lesson, right? Because when you were younger, well, when some people are younger, um, they face conflict and adversity with violence and anger. As we get older, you tend not to react those kinds of ways, and I'm not going to say you shouldn't react those kinds of ways to problems and adversity, right? We're supposed to be older, we're supposed to be wiser. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. So I shouldn't I shouldn't be discussing with anybody in my peer group how they're about to crash out over something,
Mhm.
right? Because for me, I just turned 50. So my peer group is late 30s to, obviously above my age, a little above my age. But when you're our age, I'll say that our age, well, with the exception of Fred, because he's the baby in the group.
Oh,
But Fred and I talk often. And one thing I can say about that brother, man, is I ain't never heard Fred say to me, "I'm about to crash out over something silly." You know, and I have heard that, and I'm like, "So you're gonna crash out, and then what? You got kids. Is not seeing your kids worth this crash out? Is losing your job, your money, your freedom, is it worth this crash out you about to make?" Think it's not impressive at 40 something years old, you talking about crashing out,
right.
right? So you faced a level of adversity. Put your foot on the white square and gain some success from it.
And I totally agree with you. Not just to mention the fact that it, you crashing out should be the furthest thing removed from your mind if you're truly living on what we say we're striving to do in this organization. It
Right.
shouldn't even be a thing. And that's why if I had to pick one, I'll say the gavel. And it's
Mm,
because
Mhm.
I'm
mm,
constantly trying to break away those bad things. I mean, because hey, we can all
right.
have a moment where we tend to lean a little bit further to the past us as a new, as opposed to the new and improved us. So you got to steady keep smacking away at that. So the gavel it definitely plays a part in everyday life for me. I'm not honestly can say that that's one I hold true to my heart, and I've always are always put into use as well as others. But if it was a standout one, I would have to say that's where I'm at with that.
I'll say this in regards to that gavel, man. People that have known me for any length of time know that gavel has gotten me into some trouble. I won't confirm or deny that there's been edicts and then subsequent code book entries
Hey,
related to me and the use of the gavel. I'll just say that it's gotten me into a little trouble
hey,
in my
duty. Hey, so, Fred, question for you,
yeah.
real quick. How do you feel like we create more of a welcoming lodge environment, not only for newer brothers, but brothers who've been there for a while too? How do you feel we build that?
Boy, I tell you, man, bro, throwing me the boomerangs, man.
Hey, brother.
Um, I love it though. It's good questions, man. It kind of goes back to what I said earlier about condemning. We can start creating that environment by not condemning the brothers that aren't able to come around. So when they do come around, we shouldn't have that, hey man, where you been attitude, or we ain't seen you, or you finally come around. That don't make brothers want to
Right.
come back around. You know, that make them think, oh, I got something better to do with my time, you know? So we always have to be cautious and hold one's time. We have to consider that valuable. So we can start by changing our attitude when brothers come around, as far as creating a a welcoming space for potential brothers. We have to evolve with the time. We have to meet these good men where they are. So where are the good men now? Where are and they're still out there. They're still out there. They may don't know how to find us in 2026, but we know how to find them. So again, to create that more welcoming atmosphere, we have to go meet them where they're at and open our door. We have to open our door, you know. We all know the secrets of Freemasonry, you know. We have to stop. We have to peel the veil back just a little,
Okay.
not too much, but
Yeah.
just so the common young man of 2026 can understand what it is we do and who we are. Because today's youth want to understand what it is first. A lot of
Okay.
a lot of us dove in masonry, didn't care what it was. We just know we wanted to be that. My
Hmm.
daddy was that. My granddaddy was that. My uncle, the old man I know up the street was that. I don't care. I want it. Right?
Yeah.
They ain't programmed that way these days. They want to know what's up before they sign up, and obviously that's not how masonry works. But I think we can indulge a little bit, you know, without
Okay.
breaching our obligation.
Okay. Kenny. So I extend that to you. How do you feel? Because you mentioned earlier on about things dying off with the younger generation. How do you feel we appeal to the younger generation?
I think the most effort should be made to reach out to the youth. By youth, I mean young men of sound mind and body who may be interested in joining our fraternity. Also, once we get the members in there, and this applies to members who are already in or haven't been there for a while, starting on time and being efficient with the business at hand. We don't want to get out of the routine. If your first meeting of the month is supposed to be for business, then you start with the business, you move on through that to finally comments for the good of the order. You don't want to start off freestyling and saying, "Oh, before we get started, anybody got anything?" Because that's an invitation.
Right.
That's it. And a lot of brothers don't want to, especially nowadays, man. A lot of younger brothers, they don't come into the meetings to be lectured for like 2-3 hours. They would like to come in, take care of business, and get on with the fellowship, because that's the feel good part. Creating a welcoming lodge environment is a respect for a brother's time, and I think that will draw them out, because if we go and have a 3-4 hour meeting on a Thursday night, brothers gonna feel some type of way. But if we go in there, keep the meeting to about 90 minutes to a couple of hours, maybe, you know, you can potentially bring the brother back, be like, okay, that wasn't too bad, and also, when we have them in there, we don't want to burden them. Oh, you the new guy? How about you be the senior deacon? No, let the new guy sit as the steward or something. Let the least experienced guys sit and ease into the work of the lodge, of a speaking part, because he'll get there eventually, you know. But yeah, I think that's the best way to create a welcoming environment. Not jam them up, but just let them ease into it and be respectful of their time and the effort that they put in to showing up.
Right, Worshipful Giles. Which forms of fellowship do you feel like would foster stronger bonds between brothers? What type of activities, what type of things you feel like would build or solidify, would bring that thing together? You know,
Well, right, worshipful days. Well, man, come on, y'all know me, man.
hey, no
Y'all
doubt,
know me. Y'all
no
know
doubt.
me. I'm a Mason's Mason, man. I'm a brother's brother. I'm gonna be where the brothers are until it's time to go home, or shall I say, time to go to bed. And
Exactly.
that may be 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and everybody know where I got to be when the gavel sound.
Mm-hmm.
Now I may be in there, and these glasses are tinted for a reason. That ain't just to look cool. You know what I'm saying? No, seriously, man. I'm a firm believer in breaking bread.
Right.
Firm believer, and I think honestly we need to do more of that. More incorporate meals into what we do. We have these functions, workshops, conferences, etc. I think that it should be done around a meal and not a meal being the after. You know what I mean? I think that we could accomplish the exact same that we're setting out to accomplish if we did it, over a meal. Second piece to that, I'll say that, not everything has to be done in a formal environment, right? We can have a meeting in a business casual form of dress. Always having to go somewhere and put on a suit, doing the same thing the exact same way every time. That right there, in and of itself, is a deterrent to people. You know, I don't like wearing a suit to any and everything that we do. And a lot of times I have found myself over the years sitting in a meeting or a conference or whatever, and I'm in a suit, and I'm like, man, let's just hurry up and get this over with so I can get out of this suit, go home and get out this suit. I
Yes.
just think that we need to. I think we just need to take an honest assessment of what and how we do what we do, and listen to what people are telling you.
Mhm.
Listen to what your members are saying. They're saying that, hey, we'd like to do these things under these conditions. Not saying, let allow us the inmates to run the asylum. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that, you want to foster a nurturing environment. You want to have fellowship. Like somebody just said, I think it was Kenny. Make the environment conducive for those kind of things to happen organically.
Yeah.
We don't have a click in 102, right? We come, we handle our business. We know what we're there for. We come, we handle our business, and we fellowship, and that's what it is, right? There
Right.
ain't nobody sitting in our meetings like, man, I'm as soon as this is over, and I'm going home because I can't stand so and so.
Yeah.
That's not what it is with us, right?
Right. Y'all are building those bonds, a brother. So one time I went to visit another lodge. And so it was a state lodge. And they had a jersey night. So brothers came in their favorite team jersey, whatever it was, and they had on their jerseys, their aprons, or whatever. And I was like, man, the atmosphere was so much different, because afterwards they breaking bread talking and they talking junk about the teams. It's just how they came. But obviously, our requirements or what we do is different. So, when I showed up to their meeting, I was in a black suit. Felt so out of place. But, because it's like I'm this guy sitting up here in this black suit, bow tie, and everybody else got on a throwback some jersey or whatever. And so they're just, living their best life. And I'm up here choked up. Can't wait to get out of this thing. I didn't even stay long for the break bread portion because I just wanted to get out there too. I just felt so enclosed and trapped. So I feel what you're saying when you're like, relax, casual dress. But the breaking bread part about it is so important. And I feel like that's honestly why we have as strong as a bond as we do, because we'll sit back and eat and talk. And like you say, before you know it, it's 3 a.m., man. But we're learning so much about, because in that moment we're expressing what we're going through as men. We're expressing what we're going through family wise, what we're thinking, what's on our minds, something that we might not be talking about with somebody in a regular setting, but we're comfortable enough because we're around brothers and we're building that brotherhood. We could talk about virtually anything, and it's super important. How do you feel, Fred, that every brother who comes into the fraternity should be assigned a mentor? I know some places do it. You have a specific past master that's assigned to you. You have to learn from, and you basically have to shadow him. And he's there to help guide you. Do you feel like that is something that should be done universally around the board, no matter what house you're in? And how is it impactful to that newly incoming brother?
I think that's something that should happen organically. If the gears are turning as they're supposed to, their conductor should be their first mentor figure, right? He helps conduct them through what they got to go through. And then I feel like it's up to all of us as seasoned brothers to try to pour into those brothers. And then they're going to eventually gravitate to whose instruction is sticking to them.
Okay.
Now, if we all, as leaders and past leaders, are marching to the same beat of the same drum, it doesn't matter where that new brother or that young brother gets his mentorship from, because we're all given the same knowledge that was given to us. And so that's why I think it's important to create and continue continuity. So, you're not just passing down the knowledge of Mason. You're also passing down the culture of your life.
Okay. Kenny, same question for you. Even though he does have a conductor, which is usually a senior deacon, do you feel every brother should be assigned a past master out the gate? And do you feel like that's helpful to a brother as he goes through his journey in the craft?
Well, I don't think it should necessarily be a past master, but it should definitely be somebody who signed his petition. And I think that Masonic mentorship is vital to all of us. It's one of the ways that we pass the torch. The guys we look up to, the brothers we look up to, we want to, we emulate things and put them into our own, you know, build up. Past masters, we past masters are kind of at that point. Sometimes it feels like they are ready to start passing the torch, and they are eager, So they are vital, But I think a lot of the past masters, especially the newer ones, are looking to kind of you know slow down a little bit if that's the right time, and just fellowship, partake in fellowship at that point. But yeah, definitely, Sonic mentorship is. I think that's one of the pillars of the organization, man. We got to pass the torch, and that is how we get it done.
Cool. Giles, who would you say was your greatest Masonic mentor, and how did they affect your journey?
Oh man, he who shall not be named.
Okay.
He was a great mentor, man. I mean, he really and truly was a supervillain, but he was a great mentor.
Super villain.
Um,
Super villain.
man, I'm just
It's
being
okay.
honest.
We respect it. I'm sorry, we didn't mean to cut you off, bro.
But when I reflect back on his mentorship, a lot of his mentorship were lessons in what not to do and how not to conduct yourself.
Mm.
I didn't realize it at the time because I conducted myself in that manner. The constant arguing and fighting and raising hell in grand session because I thought that's just what it's supposed to be, right?
Right.
I mean, and I wasn't always just up and arguing about anything. I had a point, had a stance, made good points, right? I wasn't just at the mic to be at the mic.
Right.
As I got a little older and experienced in the organization, man, done a few things and been a few places, I started to see that that's just not the way to go about it. And a lot of people will say, "Man, you feeling all right?" Yeah. Why you ask?
Right.
Why you ask? Like, well, because you wasn't at the mic arguing and doing the things that you do. Although it's always presented in a respectful and classy manner. You know, I'm like, yeah, that's true and all, but there were lessons learned, man, that I've later since learned from. I'll say that and leave it at that.
Fred, really quick, short point. One of your greatest Masonic mentors, and briefly, how did they affect your journey?
Um, I got I got so many meaningful mentors that I've been privileged that poured into me, but I think all of them will one.
Word.
He
Clap it
was a
up.
very close mentor to me, and he was very impactful. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was a young Mason, when I was a new Mason, I went to go visit his lodge. I think it might have been the first lodge other than my own that I visited. I hadn't met Brother Shigog yet. When I get there, I see this brother who looked old, fragile. He's on a he was on a oxygen tank at the time. Coming in a visitor, and I was always taught to greet the oldest in the room first. So I go greet him, talk to him. He introduced himself to me, and so then they start setting up for lodge. They say, hey, we need a junior deacon. So I take care of that for y'all, no problem. So I sat as the junior deacon. The worship master looked at that man, my senior warden ain't here yet, but I need to open up. That same brother that was on that oxygen tank went to the west, said, worship master, I got you covered. I didn't think nothing of it. When they go around and we opening up and they get to the senior warden part, that same fragile old looking man pulled that tank out, pulled that cord from his nose.
Yeah.
Now again, just told you I'm sitting as the junior deacon.
Right.
So you know where I'm sitting.
Right.
I turn around like this. And from that day forward, I said I want to be like that brother. And the funniest thing about that whole story is that was the first time I met him, and that was the last time I ever seen him on the oxygen tank.
Right. Word. Respect. Kenny, same question to you, man.
So the brother got healthier.
The longer you knew him.
Earl Newton was God rest his soul, was my mentor, man. He the one that took me through the York Rite. As a matter of fact, back in '05. Um, man, he had a zeal for not just symbolic masonry, but for York Rite masonry that was just contagious. And man, I've carried that with me from day one of knowing him. As a matter of fact, yeah, I can't put into words the impact he had, man, and the love I got for that brother.
But if I just had to pick one right off the rip, James Hurst. And it's because that brother, man, it's just like you. He sparked something in me that drives me and motivates me to want to continue to excel and just get better. It's like, it's like playing on a Jordan team. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna go out here, he gonna drop 50, but I'm gonna get 25. Like, I'm gonna contribute. He brings the best out of you. I feel like when you're around him. And so definitely love that brother. Very inspirational brother. One of my biggest mentors. Like I said, there are many that are out there active doing their thing, but he is definitely one that I would say is super, super important and vital in helping me continue. Because even when I get weary sometimes, and you just want to throw your hands up, I'm like, that's not what he would do, so I'm not going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like me and you were talking about the other day, like your labor of love, bro. He has that, like, I'm gonna keep going on. I gotta keep going on attitude. So that's how it is. One question for you all: what's one responsibility you feel like every brother has to the lodge? Starting with you, Giles.
What's one responsibility that a brother has to do what?
What's one responsibility that you feel like every brother has to the lodge?
One responsibility that a brother has to the lodge: paying your dues on time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the business.
hey,
Yep.
I mean, I can easily say, come to a meeting. I can easily say, be your brother's keeper. Let's be honest with one another. Paying your dues, right?
yeah,
Because everybody sitting in a lodge has aspirations to do certain things within their lodge because, they want their lodge to be known for X, Y, and Z, or this lodge. Man, did you see what this lodge did? We went to the event and it was this. Well, you can't do those kind of things without money.
right,
You just simply can't, right?
yeah,
And brothers aren't paying their dues, can't pay your rent.
right,
Brothers ain't paying their dues, can't pay your taxes.
right.
And rent and taxes are your most important, are your most important stated bills.
Oh yeah, indeed,
It keeps you in some place to meet, and taxes keep your charter.
hands down.
I wish I had something more profound for that answer, but honestly, man, that's realistically it.
True indeed. I mean, hey, you got to keep the doors open, bro. I mean, I looked
Yeah.
for everybody to give that same answer, but and I only brought it up because sometimes we have brothers, and it's usually brothers who are there longer. So I'm gonna say older brothers, and not taking a shot at anybody. They sometimes, and it's not all. That's why I say, but some, they tend to feel like, yo, it ain't got to be on time. I'll say it like that. Like I'm gonna pay it. I'm gonna pay it. I've been a member here 30 years. It don't matter if I get it to you on the fourth month or the fifth month. You gonna get it before a session because I gotta pay it in order to go cast this vote. And so, I just think that sometimes brothers forget that, it's a reason why we ask for that by a certain date. It's because like you said, the structure part of or the business side of it. So it's required. And so every brother, that is your first and foremost responsibility. On top of extending an ear to a brother if he needs it, things like that that follow after the fact. But if we're talking about a primary thing, we all have to remember that, hey, we have a fiduciary obligation to this body of ours we have to pay into. Before we close out, I will ask a question to each of you, and I ask that everybody just keep it brief, give you a synopsis. Why do you feel like we sometimes raise brothers and then shortly after we don't see them anymore? I'll start with you, Fred.
Uh, you said keep it brief.
Yeah, just trying to keep it brief.
Um, if we raise a new master mason and we don't see him again, either we didn't press upon that brother as distinctively as we should have, or he wasn't as dedicated as he thought he would be to what he thought masonry would be after an initiate. So to keep it short, the way I look at it, it could be only one of those two.
Right, and I respect that.
Well,
Kenny,
yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I agree. When we bring brothers in, we really should put more effort into the ritualistic ceremony of it because brothers want to feel special when they are coming into something. They want to feel like what they're doing matter. As far as the individual itself, maybe they come in and it's not what they expected because sometimes there's a tendency to romanticize what we do a lot. And I think we got to be upfront with them when we bring them in.
Cool. Cool. Giles, same
required
question.
reading. You know,
Yeah, I get it.
I would say that, we didn't do what we were supposed to have done to have made a lasting impression on that brother, or maybe we just dogged him out. And, in some instances, man, but sometimes it's necessary to weed some brothers out.
separate the wheat from the chaff.
It's necessary to weed out some people, right? If you get weeded out, does that mean that you shouldn't have been here in the first place? Maybe, maybe not. We didn't do what we were supposed to do. I think Worship Master Rankin, man, made a very good point, and people romanticize what it is that we do. You know, when I was in the military, man, that's why I saw my largest concentration of Masons was in the military, and I never really understood the correlation between that until I heard somebody say, "Oh, he got promoted quick. He must be a Mason."
Hmm.
I was already a Mason. And I'm like, I don't see how one's got anything to do with the other, right?
Right.
But then you have people that join a lodge or join Masonry because they think that they'll get promoted, and then that promotion doesn't come,
Right.
right? They stick around for however long that they do, and they're like, "Yeah, this ain't helping my career none. I'm out of here."
Yeah.
And so, other than that, sometimes we have to do better on our first impressions. I think if that first impression is not solid, or if it's somebody comes off the wrong way, or we not handling a brother properly, sometimes that can kind of steer them away. So I just think we got to do a better job at checking for those certain things. So really quick, always we like to share something that's a good read. And so what I would like to share with brothers is this particular book is my choice for book of the week. It's Mission First, People Always. And this is by Gary Smith. I have recently had the chance to start reading this book when I spoke with him not too long ago, about a week or so ago in Detroit. And I felt like it's a great book on how to become a better leader. I feel like we all feel like, we're good leaders, but a true leader knows there's always room for improvement. And so, some things we may not know, some things we can expound upon, or shine a light on to become better. So I definitely say to our brother, if you're looking to become sharper, become a better leader, it might be something in this book here that can help turn that switch and crank things up. For me, I can already say I feel like I've improved on some stuff personally in just a short time of reading this and seeing some things that I missed that I needed to focus on more. So if you want, you could pick the book up. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. Like I said, you won't be disappointed. And I just want to give a shout out to that brother for putting this out there and sharing that knowledge, trying to help improve brothers and step their game up when it comes to being leaders in these organizations, in these houses. So shout out to Gary on that.
Shout out, Right Worshipful Gary Smith.
So in closing, I want to thank every last one of you brothers for taking your time out to be here. Y'all could have been anywhere else. Y'all are beautiful brothers individually, just some of the realest brothers I know. And this was very deep. And I hope that everything we share here, somebody can take away from, maybe to take and discuss. Maybe it's something they don't agree with that we said. Whatever the case is, they can always reach out to us. And, if they have some suggestions for things they want us to talk about or expound upon more, they're welcome to do so in the comments. But thank you guys for giving up your time. So I'll close with this really quick. Freemasonry is not strengthened by titles, buildings, or traditions alone. It's strengthened by everyday committed brothers who choose to learn, mentor, participate, and apply lessons of the craft to their daily lives. So brothers can take that and let that sink in. So how we can be better, because remember, we're constantly striving to be better. So with that said, brothers, thank you all. And to all our fans out there, keep watching. Always, every Saturday, new episodes coming at you consistently. Tap in with us, and we look forward to speaking with you guys later. Peace.